Well, it didn't blow up, but the check engine light came on.
Sounds good.
Sounded good. 12 years ago, a man named Andreas Schulz went to work in Offladerbach, Germany, and hand-assembled this 6.2-liter V8 in my 2007 Mercedes E63. Andreas was so proud of his work that he even glued a little plaque to the intake with his signature on it. Originally, this engine would have put out 507 horsepower, but in the ensuing 12 years and 204,000 miles, I wonder how many horses have escaped. So I'm curious, and after spending thousands of dollars sorting this thing out, I'm going to take it to the dyno and see what this aged AMG can put down. It's gonna throw down. But before we head down to the dyno shop, let me update you so far on my AMG journey. I bought this thing for $13,000 in New York City, and I didn't plan on spending $4,000 sorting it out. It just kind of happened little by little, starting with the drive home from New York City to Wichita, Kansas, where it actually didn't make it quite to the end. It broke down in Kansas City, and the dealer said that I needed to replace the gateway computer. That's why it wasn't starting, it wasn't communicating with the cluster or anything. It was broken. $1,300 later, I was able to drive it to my mechanic, the Car Wizard, where I had him fix everything, and that cost $2,500. Things like new brakes, some suspension work. Well, actually, it wasn't everything because the check engine light came on right after I drove out of his shop, and I spent another $400 to replace the intake gaskets. And even then, that's not everything because I declined to fix the oil leak this thing has from the upper oil pan. That's a 20-hour job, about $1,500. $1,500, I'll let it drip a little bit of oil in my garage, as you can see over there. Now, $4,000, that is a lot of money. A lot of money, I know, and a lot of people who buy a car like this with a bunch of pre-existing problems would blame the previous owner, but I don't. I know that he tried his hardest to keep this thing running because he has over $10,000 in service records from the 2 years that he owned it. And the owner before him, I don't have the records with the receipts on it showing how much he spent, but I do have the VMI, which is Mercedes computer database, showing how many repairs he did, and it was a lot. A lot. A lot, a lot, a lot. So let's go over some of them, which probably is going to be hard now that I've thrown them up in the air. But going off the VMI, which is somewhere. Where is it? Right here. No, that's the Carfax. Where's the VMI? That was really stupid. Okay, here's the VMI. The VMI right here, the history of the car, out of warranty, repairs, and we have more than 10 trips to the mechanic to diagnose a check engine light, and at least 6 diagnostic sessions on the air suspension. That's a lot of repairs. And there are some big ticket items in here, including a automatic transmission replacement, complete replacement at 112,000 miles. Now, these engines are famous for their head bolts letting go, and this car at 204,000 miles is actually on its original head bolts, and they'll probably last till the end of time, but it did affect some cars. But the previous owner did have to take care of a big repair on the engine, taking care of the timing chain guide or tensioners. On startup, it would rattle, and he had to do some cam work as well with this thing. It's like a $4,000 job among other little maintenance things on that ticket. So a lot, a lot. Another thing I found interesting combing through all of these receipts is the power steering pump was replaced not only once, but twice with the previous owners. And then there was my famous donut disaster where it completely grenaded the power steering pump again. Doing one little donut killed the power steering pump again. So that's 3 power steering pumps on this E63 wagon. So obviously all these repairs spanning 3 different owners is absolutely terrifying. And that's why I'm really reluctant to take it down to the dyno to see how much horsepower this thing's putting out. I've just got it all fixed. I don't want to break it again. But I'm a moron, so we're gonna go and pick up these papers and then we can hit the road. It has been 3 years since I started making these silly videos, and one of the first ones was taking my old Porsche 911 to the dyno. Had 243,000 miles on it and still put down really respectable numbers. That was shortly before I blew it up on the track, which was totally my fault, but it just made me think. 3 years, and I've been able to buy a lot of the cars of my dreams and cars of my nightmares because of you all watching. So I really appreciate all of you original gangsters that have been with me this long, and if you're new, be sure to subscribe, otherwise I will come to you in the night and turn your check engine light on. Hopefully that doesn't happen with this E63 on the dyno. I don't see why not. She's sounding really healthy, but famous last words. I don't know why I'm wearing my seatbelt. I guess you don't wear your seatbelt during this. So none of the dyno guys want to drive this thing because they don't want to be responsible for it blowing up. 204,000 miles. I've got it into Dyno Mode. You have to go through the software and push a special set of buttons. I think it's like up, down, A, B, 1, 2, or maybe that's Nintendo. Was that Nintendo from the 90s? But anyway, I have ESP, ABS, everything is deactivated. And now we're going to do a baseline. You said to 4,000 RPM, right?
Should be a 1-to-1 gear, 4,000.
Okay.
Gotta go ahead and make it full right now.
Okay. Well, it didn't blow up, but the check engine light came on. 352. Okay. Seems kind of low, yeah? Yeah, I didn't quite take it to the red line though. Check engine light came on, pull was 352, or about 70 horsepower below what normal is, but I didn't quite go to red line. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go to red line. It's so terrifying. We're gonna turn it off, let it cool down, and then try again. So I've done some Googling, and in order to achieve max horsepower, it has to be at 6,800 RPM, which is right below this car's red line, which I did not get into. I definitely wasn't going as hard as I possibly could on the throttle, so that would explain the lower horsepower number. The question is, do I really want to push it to that max number on a 200,000 mile engine? I don't know. I guess I have to see how much life is left in this thing. It wouldn't quite let me go to 6,800 RPM. It quit right at 63 or 64.
It's consistent.
Yeah?
353.81.
353.81. Okay. I think I'm going to call it good. It's obviously not letting me go all the way where it needs to go, and that's still a healthy motor. Other than the check engine lights come on again, so yeah, I'm not going to push my luck. That's good. That's good. Ah yes, the familiar warm amber glow of the check engine light has greeted me once again. Very disappointing, and even more disappointing are the dyno results. Only 353 horsepower to the wheels, or about 50 horsepower off what people were reporting new. It's amazing this E63 wagon has failed me again in multiple ways. Probably not surprising. Also, I think I couldn't get this engine's full potential because it wouldn't let me get to 6,800 RPM, which is the engine's reported max horsepower point back in the day. I could only get it to about 62 or 6,300 RPM, either because I was hitting a speed limiter or maybe the engine was trying to protect itself from getting destroyed, which is fine. I'm glad it didn't destroy itself. It does seem to be running fine. But obviously, if you look at owning one of these cars from a practical standpoint, even though it's a practical station wagon, all of the issues, all of the headaches is totally not worth it. When these were new, I always dreamed about them depreciating to a point where they would be affordable. And now that it's here, and now that I've bought one, the reality of a depreciated, affordable E63 wagon is all of the repairs. This thing's old and it has dozens of modules and computers and control thingies to keep it going, and they're just gonna break one by one by one. It's an endless, infinite supply of things that can break, and it will never end. It'll just never, ever end. So that's the reality of Mercedes ownership. As I almost step in the puddle of oil this thing's leaving in my garage, you either pay in repairs basically as a car payment, or you pay in depreciation. It's one or the other, and it really didn't always used to be that way. If you take my 1992 Mercedes 500e, for instance, yeah, it's old, and because it's so old, it's starting to have problems. They had a few weird engineering snafus, like a biodegradable wiring harness and a few other little things, but it's all really serviceable. This is a car that you could work on yourself, tinker yourself, and it would always go down the road with numerous problems, but it would probably run and drive with all those problems like this car does right now. For this car to be the best luxury car, the engineering focus was on the build quality, the construction, the innovations. It had nothing to do really with technology. And Mercedes was a pioneer of traction control and airbags and that kind of stuff. But making overly electronically complicated cars because technology is what makes cars seem expensive nowadays, that's not how it used to be. What made a Mercedes special was the build quality and little things, little touches. If you look in between both the passenger and the driver's seat, there's a little piece of felt right here to keep stuff from falling in between the seats. Now let's look at my E63 wagon, where the other day I was eating a Taco Bell chicken quesadilla in it, and one of the pieces of chicken fell out, and it fell down in between the seat, and look, there is no divider. Nothing. It has gone into the abyss. The only way I could get this piece of chicken out is to remove the seats. But since it's probably loaded with preservatives and other stuff, it's not going to stink, so I'm not going to do that. For some reason, Mercedes just forgot how they used to build cars and decided to follow the trend of building these glitzy, overly technologically complicated things. So it's safe to say that nobody in their right mind should ever buy one of these, but as I've established so many times on this YouTube channel, I've got a few dead control modules and check engine lights in my brain as well, which is why I keep buying cars like these. Though there are some redeeming qualities with this car. In my opinion, it looks way better than newer Mercedes, and it's more comfortable than newer Mercedes. The seats have more cushion, more softness, along with the ride quality. The ride quality is just better. New Mercedes, they're trying to chase BMW and what auto journalists want, and that's a firm ride so it can go fast around a track and a seat that feels like a racing seat. And I hate it. Performance-wise, it is way better than cars of previous generations, which are now getting so old they're just not practical. So this really is it. And clearly there are plenty of people that love to keep these things going, so I'm not the only one that's completely nuts. I'm not going to try and argue that the benefits outweigh the negatives, but clearly there's something here. There's something here where I still want to keep it. I want to drive it, even though the check engine light came on again. We'll see what that is. Thank you for watching.